They say there's a phrase that some of you may be familiar with, that getting an education at MIT is like drinking from a fire hose. And I hope you feel that way. That was like presentation number 5 since lunch, right? And we have one more for you before we get to a coffee break. So it's my great pleasure to, actually before I make the introduction, let me say this. You've heard from researchers, you've heard from startups, you've heard about some of our research initiatives. And the next presentation is a new thing that I'd love to share with you, which is actually sponsored research, right? That's also an important part of how work gets done here, is where companies work very closely with one of our research groups. And so to that end, I'd like to introduce Dr. Amar Gupta and Roberta Forsad from Itau, who have a sponsored research relationship and will tell you a little bit more about what they're doing together.
I hope everyone is awakened. I promise I won't take long. My name is Roberto Frossard. I'm from Brazil originally. I lead our emerging technologies team within Itau, right? So I want to share, the stage. I'm very honored, to share with Professor Amar Gupta, which is, not just a celebrity for us, but someone that has all the students really working their best to deliver really valuable work to us. So I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about Itau, which is probably one of the banks, the largest bank you never heard, right? So probably that's the 3rd time you hear this today, right? Isn't it? But Itau is a bank that has over 100 years. We actually had a celebration last year when we completed 100 years. And we are the largest bank in Brazil, in South America, in Latin America, actually. And we are also the largest private bank in the Southern Hemisphere, right? So if we look at the whole history, I won't tell you every single step, but from the beginning, when there was a market recession and there was a lot of loss or tax imports that wasn't enabling the whole country to make it to the digital era, right, or to start using computers. Itau actually created a new company at the time, right, to start developing manufacturing computers. So that's how engaged in technology our whole history has been. The largest open innovation ecosystem around South America is also sponsored by Itau. And we recently, this year, actually we launched the Instituto de Ciência e Tecnologia, ICT, right? So a science and technology institute dedicated to partner with the best in the planet to bring science technology to our clients, right? So what I wanted to start sharing with you is, because of that initiative, right? We're trying to learn from what is the best way to leverage this sort of collaboration in order to speed up the whole life cycle from research to product, right? Otherwise, it's just, to be honest, we don't want academics that just want to publish papers. So that's why we're so interested in this whole ecosystem that we're part of. So obviously, when we think about emerging technologies in Itau, we're talking about AI, 99% of the time, right? And then quantum computing, which is the next wave. So we have, even Jair, who's here with me, has a couple patents on quantum computing as well. So and robotics, neurotechnology, and extended reality. So that's kind of the scope of the technologies that we actually use across different products in Itau. Obviously, we don't work as a silo, but we actually are part of the multiple. Actually, we have over 200 tribes across Itau, right? We're at 100,000 employees, right? So imagine, how many different businesses are part of that. And then obviously we have partnerships with a lot of local universities, and here in the US, MIT and Stanford. But then in terms of scholarship, right, we have, to give you, a number, we have about the double of scholarships than we have in terms of actually members. So we're really, thinking about how to leverage the ecosystem, because for a single person in our team, we will have about 2 or 3 scholars working with us. All right. So if we think about, we heard about a lot of people talking about emerging technology, and for us, our definition is this, right? It's kind of a life cycle, right? And if we think about how people, were doing this whole career in products, we think emerging technologies is kind of the new CPO, if we will, right? Because things that are, just being researched right now, in a couple months, they're going to become products very, very soon, right? So we can't wait for, something to become, mature, to get proven in the market, to actually turn this into something valuable for our customers. So that's why we work at this sort of, area where applied research and emerging technology turns into products, and then that's how we scale in 3 different phases, right? So from applied research, we come up with multiple, I guess, building blocks, we call it, right? Because to be honest, every single week, we find something new with generative AI, right? So it's really that fast, because the more we start experimenting, right, it comes with in 2 or 3 weeks, you start reusing those building blocks. Then all of a sudden, we have hundreds of components that will quickly turn into products in, I don't know, maybe a couple months. So one example we always use, recently I don't know if you are WhatsApp users, so we have our instant payment, we call Pix in Brazil, and we have enabled multimodal across, you can talk to WhatsApp, you can take pictures and tell, there is a receipt here, share this into 3, right, but I haven't drinking any alcohol, and then transfer my part of the bill to Jair, right? So that's the sort of thing we're doing already in production, using multimodal, doing instant payment, doing reasoning, all across multiple platforms like WhatsApp. And then, so we constantly ask ourselves, the what-if questions. So we work through hypotheses. So it's not just technology per technology. So one of the things we're concerned right now when we talk about AI is, what if intelligence is free? So it's not free just for us, right? For our customers. So there are, themes or hypotheses that we're working like machine customers. What if, our customers become machines, right? Any one of you, designed a journey, right? A customer journey where your customer is not, human, right? So that's the sort of thing we're actually experimenting. So what if, the cost of building products, right, or building new companies is accessible to everyone, right? So it means if we think about new clients that will become new companies, right? How do we handle this as well? What if researchers are the new leaders, right? Because we've seen how many PhDs are now actually leading the AI era, right? So that's why the new product owner has to be very proficient in AI, in those emerging technologies. And then what if we can't possibly learn everything by ourselves? So that's how we want to leverage the whole ecosystem. So one final reflection I wanted to make is if we even had the pause button for all the whole AI evolution, right? Still the abundance of intelligence that is available in all those frontier models is way too much, and we haven't reached half of the potential, right? The applications that can be built on top of it. So that's one of the things we're thinking about. How do we? It's almost like we call alligator, right? The graph, because even if we are evolving, on the other hand, the technology or the intelligence is evolving more and more. So we need to catch up with that speed of the intelligence that is building. So that's one of the reasons why, if there is a disruption coming, we think about that, alligator graph as a opportunity window, and that's why we're investing so much in this partnership, and that's kind of the opportunity window for it. And actually, that we wanted to highlight a few of the researchers we're working. So it's on fraud detection. Actually, we prefer to call it anomalies, right? So that's probably the wrong version of the presentation. But regardless, there are multiple initiatives that we're doing at the same time. So the way Professor Gupta and I were working is not just necessarily one single line of research, but we're exploring over the 2 years multiple researches that might be applicable or not, right? Depending on the hypothesis we're building. And I guess if you want to get in touch, I'll be around. Right, that's my contact here, and I'll ask Professor Gupta to follow.
Thank you, Mr. Fasad. Thank you very much for all the information you have provided. Go to the next. So I start with a question for you. That's the typical way I give my presentation. Think about it. What is the AI-based innovation and system which processes information from large number of citizens in the world and has made the highest impact in terms of the usage of the system or this concept, AI-based? So we'll take this question at the end, let you think about it. Let's go to the next one. So we were approached. My interaction with Itau Bank has been for about 6 years. First, they were a member of the FinTech initiative at MIT, and that's a multi-sponsor initiative. Then COVID came along. We were looking at how to extract information from paper documents and unstructured electronic messages. Then after that ended, we had continued professional interaction more at the personal level rather than in any official way. And then we had the beginning of LLMs and generative AI. And the question came in, what can we do in this area which would be beneficial to them? How should they be using it? That's the starting point for this brainstorming idea that we took up. Okay. Next, please. So one of the areas that I've worked in the past is to be able to read handwritten material, especially numbers. And on this area, we have a broad patent which was awarded to us. And the technology that we developed at that time is now being used around the world in a big way. So that was one of the areas we considered. And we considered a number of other areas that we could potentially work on. Next one, please. So as we were brainstorming what kind of problem scenarios we should take, it was all over the place. If we thought of an end application, one of the examples which came up is that using LLMs and generative AI, dig up all the information on pet insurance so that if an operator from Itau Bank was contacted by a customer, the operator can give as much information about it as possible. We started looking at ChatGPT, what kind of answers it gives. And again, the kind of answers it gives is not the one which a normal customer would understand on his or her own. It would need more interfacing to do it. Next slide, please. So then we took up on a broader one. We said that let's look at what LLMs can be used for addressing data anomalies. And Roberto just clarified what anomalies means in this context and other data processing problems. The original idea was how can we use LLMs to solve these problems. And I was the one who raised the issue that these new technologies will themselves create the problems which will be much harder to tackle. So again, we started looking at that from the beginning. I generally, when I take up a new area altogether, I do the work or I have the work being done in multiple prongs, different teams working on different things at the same time concurrently. When I did work on reading of the amount on handwritten amount in numbers which you saw, I had constituted 4 different teams. And again, we took 4 different teams who are studying different methodologies, different approaches. And the idea is that some of them may work, some of them may not work. Let's refine them, let's integrate them, let's have a hybrid approach ultimately. So that is the basis on which we started this 4-pronged approach. The other thing which is very different in my group as compared to most other groups is I place very heavy emphasis on undergraduate students. I find they are the ones who can think out of the box. They are the ones who come up with really bright ideas. And in all my teams which are there, I have both graduate students and undergraduate students. Yes, it takes me a lot more time to mentor the undergraduate student, but what they're able to produce is really wonderful. At the time of COVID, usually I don't do it. At the time of COVID, I agreed to mentor 60 students. Most of them were MIT, but I also took people from outside. And 2 of the students from an obscure high school in California, they contacted me, and with them, I've written a paper in a leading journal in which the 2 of them are first authors and high school students. So I'm even carrying it even further from high school level from undergraduate level to high school level. The charter to each of these 4 groups is to design, develop, test new approaches on an accelerated basis. And the project has started only about 3-4 months ago. And already we have 4 different papers which have been generated, which have been now sent for review. So they're all working at a very fast pace. They are all also spending significant time. And they're also training and testing these different networks for the different problem scenarios. So we are taking a very broad spectrum of problems which are currently encountered or which may be encountered in the future. Next slide, please. So the unique characteristics which I found is, first of all, it's been a real pleasure to work with Itau. It's a very positive, collaborative relationship. We are both very open with each other. And one of the very unusual things which happened is that, unlike most of the sponsors where we have to go and seek extension of the contract, in this case, they decided to fund the entire project for multiple years right in front and to pay the whole amount upfront, which happens extremely rarely. So that's the kind of support which is there. Great professional respect and courtesies. Clear intent as what has been reflected in all the initial actions. They've deputed a person to spend time with us. They meet with us. I currently have 15 students on this project, and I wanted to thank all these people who worked on it. Now I want to take my quiz question at the end. I give you a question, what do you think is the one which has most AI-based technology which has made the greatest impact around the world? Anybody wants to give an answer? Go ahead, go and show the answer of it. So this technology is the one for reading and processing of bank checks, reading the courtesy amount. And this is now being used in all countries of the world. And at the time when this was developed, 44 billion checks used to be processed every year in the US alone. And the cost of processing one check was $1.25. So we are talking already at about over close to $100 billion per year. And then if you take international numbers, they'll be about, it was costing around $200 billion a year for these checks to be done. And right now that number has come to less than 1% of the original cost which has been taken. Aside from doing the technical work, I had to interact with governments around the world to try to deploy it, try to find new standards for the checks. That was all extra work that was done. It was not research, but I thought it's a responsibility for me to play. And so this is a role model that we are using again to see whether we can replicate this idea all over again and see what can be done at this stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.